And in this video, we're going to go through 3 really obvious signs that your gut health is starting to deteriorate so that you can fix the problem before it ever becomes major. Now, the reason that most people don't find these early problems is because they become their normal. Now, these problems are definitely not normal, but when you have these type of issues every single day for a long period of time, it can become your new normal. So what I'm trying to do today with this video is disrupt your way of thinking, maybe make you second guess what you think is going on inside your body so that you can actually fix the problem before it becomes something a lot more serious. The first problem we're going to talk about today is bloating. Now, if you said to most people, is bloating normal? They would probably say yes. But bloating is not a normal sign of digestion. Very, very few people who have excellent digestion bloat, and if they do, it's so random, they wouldn't even be able to tell you. Now, if you're someone who never bloated before, and this is especially important now that if you've started bloating more recently, or you're bloating all the time, that is a sign of a problem in your digestive system. Now, this bloating can be caused by a few different things. It can be caused by over fermentation inside the bowel, which means you have the wrong type of bacteria in there. It could be inflammation from certain foods that you're eating. It could be slow transit time, where food passes through your system very, very slowly and then over ferments in gases, and then you get bloated. But the root of all of these bloating problems is something we call dysbiosis. Dysbiosis from the Greek word meaning bad life. Dysbiosis is an imbalance between the positive and the opportunistic bacteria that live inside that bowel. Now, most people will call it good bacteria and bad bacteria. For me, there are very few bad bacteria, and you will definitely know about it. You will get severe symptoms, a lot worse than bloating. So you have beneficial bacteria, which is most of the bacteria inside of your digestive tract, and then you have opportunistic bacteria, which in small amounts can be useful. But in large amounts, that's when it really starts to cause a problem. So for example, Candida yeast, which in small amounts is really beneficial. It can help you do things like break down the toxins when you drink alcohol. But in large amounts, Candida can cause bloating, acid reflux in a lot of people, and various other digestive problems, because it's the balance of Candida to the beneficial bacteria that is the important part. There are different types of bloating. Most people find bloating in the bowel, which is kind of around the belly button region. That would be dysbiosis of the bowel or the colon. Other times people get bloating a little bit higher up, somewhere between the belly button and the stomach, which is around here. So if you get bloating in this region here, that could be bloating or dysbiosis of the small intestine. We call that small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or you could even have small intestinal fungal overgrowth. And in my experience, most of the time it's because your acid is not sufficient and it's allowing bacteria in. So for example, if you have an H. pylori infection, or you have been taking omeprazole for a long period of time, that can definitely increase your chance of getting small intestinal bacterial and fungal overgrowth infections in that area. Now, this bloating is often caused by various different things. For example, antibiotics can damage the microbiome of both the bowel and the small intestine and the stomach actually as well, and that can cause you bloating. Alcohol, stress, ultra processed foods are all things that can damage that delicate microbiome and leave you with bloating. Also, slow thyroid function can also cause bloating. So if you're someone who knows that their thyroid is low, you're on thyroid medication, for example, that could be a root cause of your bloating as well. But even simple things like not eating enough plants, eating too much processed meat. Now, I'm not saying that all meat is bad for you. I'm saying that processed stuff, salamis, processed hams, they're probably not a good idea. And also when people are eating those, they're eating a lack of plants. And a lack of plants is a major problem for your digestive tract, because that's what your digestive system eats and fuels on. The bacteria inside your bowel eat the fibers and the colors in fruits and vegetables in order to create short chain fatty acids, which then keep your whole digestive system healthy. If you're someone who's suffering from a lot of this bloating, what I would do if you were one of my clients is start to increase the diversity of different fruits and plants that you're eating. Different colors, different fibers are all going to help that bacteria grow, and that will help start to kick off the process that fixes that underlying dysbiosis. The second but very early sign that you have problems with your digestion and you need to fix it ASAP is constipation. Now, constipation is a tricky one because not everybody's constipation is the same. So for example, some people only go to the toilet once a week. You could say for sure that you're constipated. If I had to pick and say what was optimal, it would probably be evacuating your bowels every single day. Now, If you have a change in your bowels, that could indicate constipation. For example, if you're someone who goes once every 2 days, and that's very regular for you, but then all of a sudden you start going once every 4 days, that would be constipation. Similarly, if you go every single day and then you start going every 2 days, that would also be constipation. So any change in your bowel habits that reduces the frequency of using the toilet would, for me, be a sign of constipation. Now, there are some things that we know that definitely cause constipation. For example, antibiotics, again, can come in and kill certain bacteria that will then make that transit time through your system very, very slow. Secondly, a lack of plants won't give your stool enough bulk in order to form proper solid stools that pass through your system. Number 3, dehydration is a major cause of constipation. People are either not consuming enough water or they're not consuming enough minerals with their water. So if you're someone who urinates and it looks like water, you're probably drinking too much. I would dial back the amount of water, but I'd add a little bit of pinch of Celtic salt. You need some minerals in your water in order for it to be uptaken by the body. Finally, there are certain methane producing bacteria that we know definitely cause constipation. So I made a supplement called Easy Colon, and in there it has certain compounds that will kill that bacteria and allow your body to pass stool a lot easier by using things that draw water into the bowel, such as vitamin C and magnesium. On the flip side, they will also help you grow things like bifidobacteria to keep that negative bacteria in check. Remember when we said about dysbiosis before, we're talking about the balance between the beneficial and the opportunistic bacteria. So things like Easy Colon will not only temporarily help ease the constipation, but it will also help to build the beneficial bacteria so that you don't suffer from this problem in the future. And the third sign of gut health that is heading in the wrong direction is food sensitivities. Now, food sensitivities are not food allergies. They are not the same things. They are food intolerances, which means that you used to be able to digest them, but now you're having problems. A common example I see with people I work with is that they were fine eating bread when they were younger, but as they got older, now they suffer. So most people think that they have celiac disease or they get tested for celiac disease. Now, celiac is a gene, and genes can be turned on and off by your environment, which is why some people could be negative celiac when they're younger and then celiac positive when they're older. It just means your environment has switched on that celiac gene. Now, we know for sure that dysbiosis is one of the things that can switch that gene back on. But a lot of people have what we call non-celiac gluten sensitivity, where you're eating gluten, or you're eating breads, and any wheat containing food will contain gluten, because gluten is a family of proteins found inside of wheat. And when you eat those, you can get an inflammatory reaction even if you don't have celiac disease. It's called non-celiac gluten sensitivity, and I see it in so many people who have that microbiome disruption, that dysbiosis. The more dysbiosis you have, the harder it is to digest those gluten and gliadin proteins inside the wheat. Food sensitivities are a sign of inflammation in the body, but they could also be a sign of leaky gut. Now, in your small intestine, you have what we call tight junctions, and they should be relatively tight, semi-permeable, to allow fully digested food to pass into the bloodstream as glucose, which then travels around your body. What happens when you have leaky gut, or what's technically known as hyperpermeability of the small intestine, is that you get large particles of food falling into your small intestine, and then you get an inflammatory response from the body that says, this shouldn't be here. And then what happens is, it's almost like a memory bank of your immune system, that when you eat that food again, you create more inflammation because your body remembers that last time you had those gluten proteins, you were getting an inflammatory response. So let's kick that off so we know what's coming. What you need to do there is you need to remove temporarily the foods that are causing you issues. Now, a lot of people, it's going to be gluten, and it's going to be the heavy proteins found in dairy. Things like casein and whey, which are two very difficult proteins found in dairy. But the problem is not the dairy per se. The problem is your digestive system can't handle those heavy proteins. Now, it's not just proteins that your body will struggle to digest. There are certain vegetables that make it harder to digest too. Vegetables in the cruciferous family, things like broccoli and cabbage and kale and Brussels sprouts and bok choy, they all belong to a certain family called cruciferous vegetables, and they contain things like glucosinolates that can be very tricky to digest if you have that underlying dysbiosis, which is that imbalance in your gut bacteria. Also, we know that raw and cold foods are considerably harder to digest than foods that are warmed up or cooked. So if you're someone who's having problems digesting vegetables, I recommend that you cook them very thoroughly, and you also may even want to cook your fruit sometimes, because some people struggle with the fruit sugars too. Now, don't worry about this destroying any of the minerals or any of the vitamins inside your vegetables. Vegetables, for the most part, are a very poor source of minerals. In my opinion, you should be getting those from your meat. Remember, the vegetable fiber and the vegetable colors, they feed the beneficial bacteria inside your digestive tract. That is their primary purpose. If you want minerals, I'd get them from meat. So there we have 3 obvious signs, well, obvious to me, maybe not so obvious to you, that your digestion is heading in the wrong place. If you have those problems, you definitely want to use some of the tips in this video to try to reverse the process before you end up with things like IBS or IBD or Crohn's or much worse problems. Remember, the Greek philosopher and father of modern medicine, Hippocrates, said all disease begins in the gut. And he said that almost 2,000-3,000 years ago. And it's still applicable today. So remember, if you have any of these type of problems and your gut is heading in the wrong direction, it's best to make a change now before it becomes much worse. Hopefully you like these tips and they're useful. Please comment below if you have any video topics you'd like me to cover. Don't forget to like and subscribe and click that bell notification so you get released when we make a new video.